Hello and welcome to The Agenda with me and Phil Morehouse. How you doing, Phil?
Hello, very well.
Hello.
Better than Rishi Sunak.
Yeah,
today.
well, I was just trying to find a quick visual thing of a graph to show that they're doing really badly in the polls. And that's the first image that came up on Google Images. And I was a bit behind schedule today getting started. And now Phil's giving me grief for using a Redfield and Wilton stat because they're crap, apparently.
Yeah, well, it's like, there's a lot of voting intentions really difficult. There are very few pollsters who do a decent job. It's not that Redfield and Wilton can't do polls. They can't do voting intention polls. They really arse it up. Delta poll are worse. Most pollsters can't do it. It's really difficult. If you want a public opinion poll, sure, why not? But yeah, voting intention it's like, no. But anyway.
Okay. Anyway, so you've got a top 10 Tory cock-ups. I thought you were going to say of the year, and then you went,
no, this is of the week. This is of this week. No,
Merry Christmas, everyone.
We'll go through them really quickly, and then we can pick up, and it is winter solstice today, indeed, yes. We can pick up whichever ones you want to focus in on. So,
okay.
And this is no particular order, but number one, Peter Bone, recall confirmed. So the Wellingborough by-election is on. That's going to be really interesting because we're going to see a very different campaign for it than we have. Because Greg Hans was in charge of the by-elections this year. This time it's going to be the professional Isaac Lebedeau. The second is that the Express are really stoking Tory fears of Nigel Farage. Now they're talking about, he might stand in Wellingborough, He will not stand in Wellingborough. He'd get his ass kicked. The third one was Victoria Atkins, the new health secretary, dropping a bit of a clanger with junior doctors.
Junior doctors. And she said, no, they're going to be called doctors in training from now on.
Which they and the BMA are trying to suggest is somehow a better term. It's junior doctors. To be fair, the BMA do use that, and they say, well, they don't like junior doctors because it's infantilizing them. And it's don't be stupid. There's junior and senior in every profession. There are junior ministers and senior ministers. We talk about this all the time. Of course, you have junior and senior. Every profession. It's not an insult. You have junior barristers. Victoria Atkins, the health secretary, is a junior barrister because she's qualified as a barrister, but she was never made a QC, or now it would be a KC. So she's a junior barrister. That's not offensive. It's utter anyway. But she ended up creating a massive row at just the time when she wants to be trying to persuade them to stop striking. Then we had top trolling from Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has been trolling the Tories all year. I tip my hat to him. And he's done the latest one. I've got all the images behind me. The Telegraph are going absolutely mental at the fact that Keir Starmer has been... How dare he wear fatigues? He's a lawyer. He's not a military person. And it's all these other images are from the Telegraph as well. That Boris Johnson image where he's holding a bazooka. We haven't used bazookas in decades, mate. Where are you getting these ideas from? He's still reading Action Man comics. But... it's Boris Johnson. The Liz Truss, there was not a word of condemnation for these Tory leaders wearing military fatigues. Do you know why they're really upset about it? Do you know why they're upset?
Go on.
Which one actually looks like they might be in the military? Which one? If you didn't know who any of these people were, and it was totally out of context, these images, which one would you actually believe was a military leader?
I've got to say Starmer.
I know
is the
we're
only one who looks
biased,
like
but you've got if you didn't know who any of these people were and you saw these pictures, you would. Objectively, you would. That's why they're upset, because he's made it work, and they're really upset. About
Liz
it.
Truss just she looks like little Jimmy Cranky having a go on a.
And the thing is as well,
you can't
Boris
see
Johnson...
him on the image. Sorry, I should show you this. I don't know if you can see coming through, but she's a little bit cut off on your image. If you could scoot your image over a little bit, but then we'll see more of Boris Johnson, I guess. Be right over your shoulder. There you go. There she is.
Right.
Oh my God!
It's absolutely insane. And the thing is that Boris Johnson was actually probably the best one they came up with. The thing is, Boris Johnson deliberately makes himself look like all of his clothes are ill-fitting. It's deliberate because he tries to put on that image of is like the roguish nephew for the old dears. Oh, leave him alone. He tries his best. So he deliberately makes himself look slightly comical.
And
Whereas
he's
Liz
sort of-
Truss is just unintentionally comical.
He sort of styled himself on Hugh Grant in the 19...
And you like, look at Rishi Sunak then. It looks like his mum's sewn his name onto his T-shirt so he don't get it stolen by the big boys. And so anyway, I mean, that's just number 4. Then for the news that's come out today, Rishi Sunak will now be sweating because growth for the third quarter of this year was set at 0. Now it's been revised to -0.1. Now, that means if we get negative growth for this quarter, that's a recession. Now, in reality, there is absolutely no difference between a technical recession where you get a couple of quarters of minor growth and what economists have said has felt. They say it's felt like we've been in a recession for over a year. It doesn't make any difference. Like, it's just a technical thing. It's still a knackered economy, whichever way you look at it. But the word recession is like, you know, when Germany had a recession, when the Eurozone had a technical recession, which they're out of now, you know, all the Brexiteers went mental at it because it's that word. It's really damaging. Rishi Sunak does not want to go into election year where everyone's saying we're in a recession and he can't say we're not.
Yes. But I mean, we are in an effective recession.
It is,
because our population is growing, but our economy isn't. So if we were at 0%, in fact, if we're anything less than, what's the population grown? Year on year, it's about 1% a year, isn't it? So anything less than 1% of growth means that we are actually going backwards per person.
But but then they'll just moan about migrants. So, but
quick, look at the migrants.
Yeah, but it's just politically, it's really damaging. Like, there's no difference between having 0% growth, 0.1% growth, and -0.1%. It's like nothing. But politically, it's dynamite. The stupid U-turn on immigration policy. So Rishi Sunak, or the government, really, the Home Office announced it, but Rishi Sunak sort of said, right, we're gonna raise the threshold for people to have like the family visa, so for foreign-born partners of people, from about 18 grand to like 38 grand, near enough. And the laughable thing about this is the only reason they did it, I saw a country report, if you believe reports, is that they did it to try and persuade Robert Jenrick not to resign. Then he resigned anyway, and now he's left with this absolutely pig's ear of a policy, which he's now started to rein back on. And even that is cocked up. Like, at the very least, if you want to basically neuter this policy in a way that doesn't get you attacked too badly, what you do is, he'd have been better off, rather than reducing it to 29,000, which is still too much. He'd have been better off just saying it doesn't apply to people who will be renewing the visa. In other words, who've already been granted this visa. So it'll only apply to new applicants, which is still like bad enough, but you'd sort of get away with that. And then you leave it for Labour to deal with, because the policy will only be in place for a few months, and then Labour's problem, isn't it?
Yeah. So
he's even cocked that one up. You know,
I was actually backheel it. I mean, is this actually?
It's madness. This one.
Is this a law, or is this a policy? Is this like?
Well, it will be law, because it's a way of granting visas. So it'll be, you know, it's not legislation. The government can just. Well, they will be legislating for it in the budget, I think.
Oh right, okay.
So either way, what I'm asking you just do a new budget.
Will Labour have to reverse this through the House?
Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah,
Parliament.
But at the same, or they might be able to do it with statutory instrument.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But I mean, I described it as, you like your football. Do you remember? I've forgotten his name again. I had to look him up. I remember it from years ago. I think I was still at university when this happened. And there was Ali Dia. Do you remember him?
No.
Right. Okay. This was like, must have been 25 years ago, maybe. And basically, Graham Souness was manager of Southampton at the time. And he got conned into thinking he'd got this star signing, right? This thoroughbred. And he even played him in a Premier League match, and they had to take him off within minutes because he was basically just a shit amateur. So they got conned. This fella who's just like you or I, was just a football fan. And he got on the pit, and he was so awful they had to pull him. And they couldn't even wait till it's like really terrible. And like, that's what Rishi Sunak is in politics. He's that level of amateur. The Tories thought they had this star signing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, mate, he's a rank amateur. He wouldn't even fit into the Sunday League.
This is
Yeah.
amazing. I can't believe I missed this. So this is in November 1996. Dia convinced Graham Souness, the then Southampton manager, that he was the cousin of the FIFA World Player of the Year and Ballon d'Or winner George Weah, which led him to signing a 1-month contract with Southampton days later. Brilliant!
I remember it. And
so
it's just,
good.
I was reminded of it recently because I just thinking this is Rishi Sunak.
What a guy. What a guy. He played for quite a few teams. He played for La Rochelle for one game.
Yeah. I think he might have had one game for a lot of teams, don't you?
He played for the Blythe Spartans for one game in 96 before he went to Southampton.
Because I remember it. I remember it being in match. I wasn't watching the game, but I remember it being on Match of the Day.
Oh my God.
The talk of it. Because he had to be pulled off within minutes. He was that bad. It was that bad. You look at professional footballers in the Premier League, half the time they're just walking up and down the pitch. Like, the greatest players in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo, most of the time is just walking, looking at his feet. Yeah. And this guy goes on and they have to get him off immediately.
How Did you try and like fire a goal in the wrong direction or something?
I don't remember that. I just remember how bad you have to be to not even be able to bluff it for a few minutes.
Just a big shout out to One Angry Pagan there, £10 super chat. Goody Giola, I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry, One Angry Pagan. Phil, Sunak's chickens coming home to roost now. Lol. Wish Labour would actually point out clearly, repeatedly, that he was the key to the GFC and the terrible monetary policy since, you know. But yeah, I mean, the Tories love to pretend that each year they renew into a new party that's got nothing to do with the mistakes.
But I think they should keep reminding people that Rishi Sunak was, or telling them, they may not know, that he was literally one of the, not just a type of banker, but one of the actual bankers who triggered the crash in this country.
Yeah.
Right,
what other stories
not through carelessness, through deliberate act to try and break up a bank, basically.
Yeah.
To crack open a bank like a piggy bank and steal the pennies within.
And they all got away with it?
Yeah.
Bastards.
Yeah.
So go
what was my next one? That was only on to like number 6. Then we had Penny Mordaunt dropping a WhatsApp bombshell, basically saying, I had a load of WhatsApp messages between myself and Boris Johnson about shielding in care homes from 2020. And in 2021, those messages randomly disappeared. I tried to speak to Boris Johnson's chief of staff about it, and he was having none of it, wouldn't even meet with me.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's and I don't understand why that's not. I can understand why some media outlets aren't reporting on that. I don't understand why others aren't. There's like no real mention of that. And that's in her witness statement, and it's published. It's on the COVID inquiry website.
Yep. I think they're compromised. I think that the Guardian.
Well, I do, but it's surprising to me that all of them are, because you think at least the Guardian would go with that.
Well, isn't it interesting that the one newspaper that's been seriously blown up about the phone hacking, which all the newspapers were doing, was the Mirror, which was the left-wing one.
Yeah. Yeah.
As if someone's kind of, I don't know, protecting the others somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Conspiracy theories. Penny Mordaunt looks all right in a uniform. She'd get away with it.
Yeah, but she doesn't, because she's still not. She's not military. Honorary captain. Yeah, because you made them when you were defense secretary.
Yeah.
You made them make you an honorary captain. She's just a LARPer like the rest of them. Then now
LARPing around looks a lot better than this Rishi Sunak with his T-shirt that says Sunak. In case he forgets his name.
Yes.
Or in case
the people there, because this was 2021, right? So he wasn't prime minister then, but he was chancellor. It's like, what did the others might not know who he was?
Yeah,
he was still the second most senior member of the government. Then Michelle Mone. Now this has got really interesting. So we had the Lord Bethel thing. So just to begin with, for those who don't know what that is, Lord Bethel signed a witness statement saying that he changed his phone in early 2021, and to court, basically an affidavit to court that he changed his phone in early 2021 and lost all of his previous phone messages. Then he gets into an argument with Michelle Mone on Twitter, and he thinks he's got a gotcha, and he posts one of his phone messages from 2020, one of the ones supposedly lost, And then Michelle Mone goes, "Oh, I thought you said you'd lost those."
Yeah, you're going to present that to the inquiry.
Yeah, but she's doing another one now. A couple of days ago, she tweeted. I've got so many Twitter things open. It's going.
Right, while you're looking at that, I'll Anthony Fisher. Thank you very much for the super chat. Just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work and educating me. Both of you are part of my daily routine now. Merry Christmas to you both. Merry Christmas to you as well, Anthony.
I won't find it at the moment, but I've got a link somewhere. Basically, what she said is in a tweet a couple of days ago. She said. It says a senior civil servant contacted me to say they would make the National Crime Agency investigation go away if we would just pay the government a certain amount of money. And she says, "I've got this phone
Michelle
call."
Mone said this.
Yeah, she said, "I've got this phone call recorded." It's 2 days ago. If you look on Michelle Mone's Twitter page, she doesn't do that many tweets, so it's quite recent. She says she's got the phone call recorded should she publish it. Now, there's a couple of things about this. First of all, it is actually quite common. You get this with like tax. We had this with Nadim Zahawi. It's quite common with very rich people for the government to basically do deals with you where you pay some of what you owe instead of all of it, or you pay all of what you owe but don't go to prison. So that'll be what it is. I absolutely believe this phone call will taking place. But as Alexandra was pointing out, it's a bit blackmail-y, isn't it? She's basically trying to blackmail the government.
Yeah,
that's what that is, isn't it? That's blackmail.
So when did this go out? This is Michelle Mone this week.
Yeah,
right. She said basically the government offered to, because I keep getting messages from a student loan company saying I can pay off my student loan. In full. Yeah. No, for a knockdown rate, and I'm like, no, I've got a 25-year mortgage type, so I'm just going to let it lapse. If it was the government's money, our money, then I would think twice about it. But it's a private company.
So let me just find it.
They don't even call it a student loan company anymore. Sam, thank you very much. £5 super chat. They're taking jobs from British people. BBC Radio 2 political commentator phoned in this lunchtime, who thinks the cap should be at the £38,000 mark. I honestly, Sam, I can't stand people like that. Like, how dare they stand in the way of love, of people who want to be with someone and have them stay in this country and raise children in this country. The worst possible thing we can do is we can reject immigrants coming from this country that we haven't had to educate. At the same time, get rid of British people who we have had to educate and send them off somewhere else. So effectively, we're paying for the education for someone who's working and paying tax in another country.
The other way to think about this policy this way, what it's like saying you can absolutely have a relationship with a foreign-born partner and they can live in this country and it's no problem at all if you're rich enough. That's what it's saying. It's not having an issue with having a foreign-born partner. It's having an issue with a foreign-born partner if you're not wealthy.
Yeah.
That is what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. It's discrimination in which, again, just like Brexit, the rich aren't affected by it. The rich can still go and live and work anywhere they want in Europe because they've got the money to do so. The rest of us, it used to be free. We never had to ask permission to go and live and work in other countries. Now we do. Well, in other countries in Europe.
Now, okay, so here it is. This is the tweet.
Oh, here we go.
Right.
Well done.
Notice 2.1 million views. A lot of people have seen this tweet. A senior civil servant offered to make the NCA investigation into us go away if we paid the government a sum of money. We have a recording of this on tape. Shall we name the senior civil servant involved? Which is sent to the Department of Health and Social Care.
Wow.
So, I mean, very black. It's very
the whole Tory House of Cards.
Well, I mean, it's like, this is what happens. This is why Tories are usually as thick as thieves, because they know that they're all so crooked that everyone's got the goods on everyone else, and you don't usually abandon one. But they've thrown her through the airlock, and she's going around taking the rest of you with me.
Yeah. Wow, Graham is absolutely Canadian in his defense of marriage and individual rights, says Colin. Thank you very much to David Faulkner there for the 78 Hong Kong dollars. He says, Dung Ji Jit Fat Lok, which means, I think, happy winter solstice, Graham and Phil. Here's hoping for a Toryless 2024.
We do still have them in 2024, but not 2025.
Yes.
I don't know how
Well,
much of
Christmas
2024.
2024,
Oh,
there
yeah,
will
they
be
should
no
be gone now.
Tories in power.
Yeah, this should be the
And
last Christmas with them.
even if he wins the election, which I hope he doesn't, Trump won't be in power yet. And something I just wanted to, I know you don't really talk about politics outside the UK, but I just want to make a point that if the Supreme Court pick up this this ruling by the Supreme Court of Colorado, which said that Trump cannot be put on the ballot because he was involved in an insurrection.
Yeah.
One of the cop-outs from that, you can either say it doesn't affect presidents, that particular clause or amendment or whatever it is. They can either say that it wasn't an insurrection, or, and this is the one that I think would be very, very interesting if they do it, say the president is above the law. If they say
can't
that,
do that. They can't say that.
Yeah, they can.
I know what you're going to say. They can't.
They can. Why can't they do that?
Because that's
They're 6'3" nutters.
Where, yeah, I know, but where would they get that from? They have to have some basis for their ruling.
I don't know. Where they have the basis for getting rid of Roe versus Wade? They just pulled it out their arse. Where they get the basis for getting rid of affirmative action? They just
ruled that wasn't protected by the Constitution. That's all.
Yeah, you just reinterpret the Constitution, which is what they do every day. They just go, oh well, it used to mean this, but now it means that. Has the wording changed? No, but it used to mean this, and now it means that.
Well,
but
we'll see.
if they do, I think it's an outside chance. But if they do declare the president above the law, then Biden can have the Secret Service go and take out Trump legally.
Yeah, well,
problem solved.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Just because the Supreme Court is packed out with this, I'm not sure they're all that keen on him.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've still got 2 more to go. So the other one, can I
do the super chats and then you can do the last 2. We're powering through these. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the £10 super chat, explaining that the letter G with a dot on top is said like the letter Y. Lol. I just put a lol on the end of that. Like, I'm supposed to know that.
I just put a Y in.
I'm such an idiot. How do we think the Tories are going to unravel further into the next months leading to spring?
If there is a recession, the thing is we won't find out for a while because think about where we are. We're like nearly at Christmas and the latest economic data we have, think about this. The latest economic data we have is from October. So we don't even have November's yet, do we? I'll have to check. Because we should get November in December. It's like usually a month. So we're not going to find out whether we're not going to see headlines of recession until like late January at the earliest. And then think about this, that third quarter was thought to be zero growth and now it's revised down to 0.1%.
Yeah.
So it could be that they think, it could be that it's calculated to be 0% growth in the final quarter. It's not a recession. Then it's revised down to minus 0.1% growth again. So then it is a recession, which doesn't get announced until just before the local elections or something. It could be very messy. It could even be that a recession is announced in like late January.
Yeah.
And then it's revised to 0% growth and it's not a recession. It all gets very messy. And this is the problem with people focusing on this technical recession term, because it doesn't really mean anything.
It means 2 quarters of
2 quarters of contraction. That's all it means. And you can get that. You can have an economy that's really booming and then has a little bust. But it's still, the economy is still doing well. It's just not doing as well as it did half a year ago.
Yeah.
Or you can have what we've got now, which is an economy that's been stagnant for 15 years, ever since the banking crash. Other countries recovered from the banking crash pissing years ago, over a decade ago. We didn't.
Yeah.
So you could have that, and there's no recession at any point in it because your economy is so small that it's really hard to shrink it anymore. And it's really hard to shrink it for 2 quarters in a row. So it's actually worse having a stagnant economy for so long than it is to have a booming economy that then inflates a bit too much and contracts, and then you've got a recession. That's better. Like, people have this fear factor to recession, which is really annoying, but it's going to be really hilarious next year because it's going to bite the Tories on the ass.
Thanks to Lee Cruz, sorry, for the £2 super chat. It's all I got to give. Keep up the good work. Thanks very much, Lee. Really appreciate it. And Rachel Harris throws in £5 and says, Tory Initiative 2024, Soylent Green. Soylent Green people.
Yes, there is
Spoilers.
going to be food problems again next year. I mean,
So we're gonna
the
have to eat the old.
standards, the standards one's coming in, yeah.
We're going to have to eat Edward G. Robinson.
Well, it might be the other way around because they rely on the old people for votes, so they might get the old people to eat the young people.
You would
and
think
worry about that later.
They managed to take a lot of old people out during the COVID years, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, proportionally, it was something that killed old people at a much higher rate than anybody else in society, and they're the type of people who would naturally vote for the Conservatives. Not all of them. Hashtag not all old people. Just a majority of them. Just more than 50%. Too many. Could we say too many?
And the last one, it's not one that you'll see in the mainstream media, but I thought it was quite funny. So obviously, everyone's now gearing up for selecting candidates for the general election. Labour have opened up all remaining constituencies. They're getting all their candidates selected now. The Tories are doing the same. If Reform UK are going to carry on pretending that they're going to stand someone in every seat, then they need to get a move on with theirs.
Yeah.
So I think it was yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before. The Tories were supposed to pick their candidate for West Bromwich. Now, this is a new constituency. At the moment, there's like West Bromwich East and West Bromwich West, and it's all been messed around. And there's going to be, and they're both like typical red wall in that they're Labour. They're basically Labour, but they both bits flipped Conservative in 2019. Right. So I haven't looked into any great detail, but I'm going to guess this new constituency of West Bromwich is going to be Labour in the next election. But the point is, currently it would be Tory. It's an existing Tory seat. So they were supposed to select their candidate at a meeting this week, and they couldn't because not enough Tory party members could be asked to turn up. So the meeting wasn't quorum.
Oh my God!
So they cannot. So Tory members could not be asked to turn up to a meeting to select a candidate for an existing seat.
Maybe don't kill the people who vote for you. Oh wow! So that
just shows that the Tory
party, a good thing, isn't it?
The Tory party are just they're looking at this with they've not got any optimism.
If people can't be bothered turning up to a selection meeting, they're not going to turn up to vote. They're just not going to bother.
Well, those will vote, but you know, if you think about, you know, they're not going to necessarily turn out to knock on doors, is what I would say. If they can't be asked to turn up to a selection meeting, they can't be asked to turn out to knock on doors.
Yeah, exactly. George Dawes, George. I keep saying George Dawes from Shooting Stars. £2 super chat, thank you. Except the Tories blame Labour for 2008.
Well, this is why it would make more sense to really put Sunak in the frame on it. Because first of all, it's valid. And second of all, it would then remind people that, you know, what caused that banking crash was greedy bankers. And by the way, do you know you've had one running our economy for the last 4 years? Oh, what's happened to our economy over the last 4 years? Isn't that a coincidence?
Do you think there's a reason why
there must be a reason.
Go after the Tories in that way, or go after them for the fact that the economy hasn't grown?
There must be a reason. I just don't know what it is. I genuinely don't know what it is. I really don't. I sort of know how they fell into the trap initially in 2010. They took the view, and it's always a bit nuanced, and people just take simplistic views. So they lost an election in 2010. There's this big fear of you don't want to call voters stupid. You don't want to say to voters you made the wrong decision and talk down to them. At the same time, it doesn't mean to say that you have to go along with the Tory lies. You know, you also don't want to go, oh, the Tories conned you. It's not your fault the Tories conned you because you're stupid and everything. So, because that's how people will take it. So you have to go along with the notion that actually you can go along with the notion of we did a bad job in like communicating things to the public or something like that. You can still put the emphasis on them. But what you don't do is what Labour did in 2010 and go, oh, we're really sorry. Yes, austerity. Yes, it's all our fault. Yes, we're forcing the Tories to adopt austerity because we were so silly. It's like, no.
Well, I mean, I'll go to the election of 2019 when a lot of Labour activists were running around screaming from the rooftops at how bad it was when Labour were last in power. And I was like, I don't know if that's the way to get people to vote for you, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like, Blairites,
Madness.
Blairites, why you red-tie Tories, Blairites. And it's like, F off and join the Conservatives. F off and vote Conservative. And a lot of people, they might not have gone and voted Conservative, but they just stayed at home.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, so you're telling me that last time you were in power, things were the worst they would possibly ever be because we had a left-wing Conservative in power or something, a right-wing Labour person in power with Tony Blair, and you want to go, you want to come back? Do you want to be back in? I would have been pushing the great things that Labour did when they were in office for 30 years.
Done. And what they should have done, what Ed Miliband should have done, is to say austerity. You know, we have been managing the economy. We have been getting it. Because I'll tell you one thing that's absolutely certain: when the Tories lose the election, first, and they're going to ram this in the media, they're going to say, don't let Labour take credit for turning the economy around. We've laid all the groundwork for it. The Tories have laid all the groundwork for it. That's what they will be doing. Labour should have said the same thing, and they've had more validity to do so. They should have also said, with austerity, we're going to see this, 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 and this. So that in 2015, when people said, yeah, this is what austerity actually delivered, if Ed Miliband and Ed Balls had been banging on about it all the way through, saying this is what austerity does, it doesn't actually rescue the situation, it doesn't reduce the deficit, it does this, 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 and this, they'd have been proven right, and they could have actually then won the election.
Yeah.
So absolute disaster.
Sam, thank you very much for the super chat. Rail fares up 4.9% in March. Steve Harper, significant increase by government to cap the increase in rail fares below last year's rise. Yeah, not great. Public transport hasn't been public since the 1990s. It's been private transport.
There's been the odd train company that actually seems to work that the Tories had to nationalise on the quiet.
Which one was that?
I can't remember. I've used the trains. But they've...
LNER is now nationalised.
Yeah.
Transpennine Express has also been nationalised. I think Southern Trains maybe, but someone down south will be able to correct me on that. There's a few of them. And when Labour get in, I think what the Tories have done is they've renewed the lease for the Avanti West Coast for like the next 50 years.
I thought it was about 9 years or something.
No, it's probably not 9 years. But there is a get out there because the Labour, when they get in, can say that Avanti's not doing it properly. And they have mechanisms for taking the franchise.
They don't even need them. I would just take the attitude that you force them to deliver the service they're supposed to, because there's a service requirements in the contract, and you penalise the hell out of them for failing. Automatic penalty. They're doing it for water companies. Why not do it for rail companies? And they might do, for all I know. They've just not said so. Penalise the hell out to the point where they want the government to take that franchise off them.
Yeah. Katrina's saying LNER, Transpennine, Northern, I forgot about that one. They were the ones that were still using these Pacer trains until literally 2 years ago. They were using Pacer trains, which are temporary trains, which were the chassis of a Leyland bus that they just put on a rail, the rail wheels. And I mean, just the fact that we were still using a temporary solution to on our rail network, like nearly 40 years later, just says everything. But that's what Northern were doing. And Southeastern, that's the one that I was thinking of down south. But my point about the trains is it's so ridiculous to have. So where we're on the East Coast Main Line. We have a load of different companies. Great Western Railway, GWR. We have LNER, Cross Country, Transpennine Express. There's about 17 different companies, ones that you never even heard of, like Hull Trains, which is apparently a company. Right. And they're all supposedly competing against each other. But the mad thing is that if you have a contract as a driver for one of these companies, you can't work for another company. So you could be a fully qualified driver who's driven down those tracks every day for 17 years. And when they've got a shortage of staff for that train, you can't get on it because your contract's with a different company.
The other thing as well, it's bad for the consumer as well, because you can't just buy a ticket that gets you from one place to another. It's like only certain services.
Yeah.
Because it'll only cover for like one company or something, or it might cover for a couple. But it's an absolute nightmare. Like, for example, I mean, as someone who doesn't use trains very often, I mean, I got caught out the last time I went to London, and I couldn't get the train back that I wanted to get. Oh no, you got to wait. It's your next train. It's like this train's pissing empty, mate. Yeah, but your ticket says this. And I didn't intend it to say a specific time. I just wanted to go home.
No, they catch you out. And that's something that I feel very much in modern life. It's like you can't make a single mistake when you're booking something, or when you park your car, or when you go and do something, when you actively do something. There's so many traps that the powers that be have set to make it, so you lose all your money. So one of the things I always think of is I bought a ticket for National Express back to Liverpool from Durham. This is a few years ago now. I haven't used them since because of this experience. The ticket was like £12, right? Because it was an early bird ticket. And as soon as I pressed enter, as soon as I pressed pay, I realized that I had it was the right day. It was a Wednesday, but it was the wrong date. So it was a week before, a week after the actual date. And I thought, oh shit. Tried to cancel it online. You couldn't cancel it online. I had to phone up and literally wait on the phone for half an hour for them to pick up. And then they said, yes, you can change it for the other day, but it'll cost you £13 as a charge. And I'm like, that's more than I'm paying for the ticket. And they're like, yeah, you're best off just getting a new ticket. And I'm like, how is that legal?
So it shouldn't be, should it? I mean, consumer rights laws should stop that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't, because the Tories don't care, because they don't pay for anything themselves. If they want to go somewhere, they can just fly there on the private jet, or they go first class on the train, which they don't pay for. We do. And they just don't know the price or cost or value of anything. And that's why you've got, at one end, you've got that idiot Neanderthal saying you can live off 30p a day because he doesn't understand money.
Well, 30p a meal, he said, but yeah.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got Boris Johnson, who calls £250,000 chicken feed. Yeah. And then you've got Michelle Mone and Barrowman, her husband, saying that £60 million is that's good enough for what is it? 1 day's work, making phone calls and ordering some stuff. Yeah. That's value for money. That is.
Well, that's the thing, because so it's £67 million profit, and in today's money, I think I looked it up, with inflation, it'd be £81 million in today's money.
Wow.
But so, SFAC's just saying that, didn't I also have an issue traveling back from Labour conference? Yeah, they cancelled my last service, so I was stuck in Doncaster. As it happens, I wasn't, because there's someone who lives there who took me back. But or I would have had to get a taxi. But the train that I'd paid for wasn't running, so they just cancelled it. And they cancelled it. Oh, sorry, drivers. We shortage of drivers. I think so. If you find that company, if you say no, this is your timetable, you're going to deliver these services, right? Yeah. Now, if
Phil, where have you gone? Sorry, Phil, you dropped out for a moment. Oh no, we lost signal. Sorry, everyone, we just dropped our signal for a moment there.
But
hopefully we're back now.
What they should do, if they cancel a service, it should be an automatic fine, and the size of that fine should be such that if the reason they're doing it is because they're too cheap to have enough staff to cover, if they're worried about having staff that won't necessarily always be working every minute, and they just think, oh no, it's just cheaper to cancel a service, there's not enough people on it, charge them enough so that it is. And you see how much you watch. If you brought in a policy where it's automatic fines for not running a service for whatever reason, unless it's related to things genuinely outside of their control, you watch. I'll bet you every train company in the country opens up recruitment.
Yeah,
suddenly, because that's what they're doing it for, to try and reduce the amount of staff they've got. You find them
the amount of
cancelling
money,
a service because of not enough staff.
The amount of money that is wasted, and this is what pisses me off about this idea. We had the free market and that gets rid of waste. It doesn't. It creates waste. It creates, if you have different standards in different countries, it creates waste. It creates red tape. It creates more cost for the consumer and more cost for the actual operators. Think about livery. Think about all the different designs that you've got to have on each different train. Has got to have its own logos, things like that. Each train has to have its own contract with whoever the internet provider is. It's got to be separate. Each train's got to have its own contracted cleaning services, things like that. And the amount of bullshit that involves, instead of just having a national body that says, right, we run all the trains that go along this train line. And if a driver's not available on a given day, we have a pool of 100 other drivers that we can call on, who are all contracted to the same company.
Because this is what when I've talked to people that are pro-privatisation, they talk about the days when British Gas, and sometimes people just go into work and put their feet up and read the paper. It's like, yeah, that's true. There were sometimes I knew some people that would say that, yeah, there were certain times of the year when they were just paid to read the paper. But that's fine because of three things. First of all, they were delivering the service. Was the service, if there was suddenly more work, they weren't reading the paper, they were doing the work. So the service was there, the focus was on the service. Second of all, it still worked out cheaper. It works out cheaper to pay more staff than you technically need than it does to pay shareholders. And the third thing is, what are you moaning about? It's job creation. It's creating jobs for people. And it's doing it at lower cost to the public. How on earth is that a bad thing?
As so often we talk about this stuff, it's like it's the moral choice, it's the right choice, but also it's economically the best choice. It's the best option. It's like game theory, I guess. But just want to come back to One Angry Pagan. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. I feel bad that I've made you feel baddies, but that wasn't supposed to come across as pretentious. Apologies, Graham. Nothing to apologise for. I just thought it was funny, as did you, because you put lol. I do also hope Starmer and Labour pick up the pace with comms going into spring. Yes, fingers crossed on that. And Sam, £2 super chat, thank you. Scotland got rid of peak time fares for 6 months. When I'm in charge, Phil, trains are going to be free. Everything's going to be free. You just have to book it. You only have to pay for it if you don't turn up.
I'd say what I would do, I would with energy. If I was, if I could work my will and we moved to a position where energy was nationalised, I would actually everyone has a quota of energy that they can use, and it's all included.
Yeah.
And if you're above a certain amount, you'll pay more. So that way you're not getting people to be wasteful.
Yeah, let's do that.
But nonetheless, everyone has. So that is effectively a way. And again, if you have a taxation system that does put the burden on those with the broadest shoulders, as the phrase seems to be these days.
That's a good idea.
You just say, you've nationalised energy services. No reason why you can't say to everyone, you get this many kilowatt hours included because you paid your taxes for it.
Pay for.
And and nothing above it. And it'll be set at whatever is a reasonable amount for an average home.
Yeah, universal basic energy.
Yes.
Love it. As Yoni's just put in the chat. So and that could work with transport as well. If you you get X number of free rides on a train a year, you and your family.
We used to get that anyway because my dad worked for British Rail back in the day.
Well, so he knows his bogies then. What was he doing? Was he a?
He was an engineer. Like because Doncaster, nice and central. That's why they should put the Parliament there. So it was the main yard, British Rail yard there. So he was a plater.
Oh, fantastic!
Well, he was a plater when I was born because that's what's on my birth certificate. And he was an engineer. Then when Thatcher started privatising it, he took his redundancy.
Right.
And then he ended up. He's a bit of a Tory. And then he ended up being paid. Come back to this waste. So what my dad did basically through most of my time growing up, and this was knocked on the head in 1997 for all those people who called Tony Blair, a red Tory. He's not a Tory. He's like much further to the right than I am, and he did a lot of things I don't like, but he's still centre left. But what happened was, so my dad, because he knew people there and they were privatising everything, which means they were contracting everything out. So he bought a truck. It was just a pickup truck, and he would go there. They'd put something on the back of it. So it's not a lorry, it's just a pickup truck, and he would deliver it somewhere. Might be in Europe, might be somewhere else around the country, taking advantage of the old single market. And they'd pay him a fortune. This was in the 90s, 80s and 90s, and he was getting paid. He didn't tell me, but I got the impression this was hundreds of thousands a year. Back then, he was getting paid an absolute mint. He had 2 pickup trucks and he employed 1 driver. And you think, and they were doing this for years. So it's not like they needed it as a one-off. It's like they could have paid their own driver and bought their own pissing van. Yeah. For that. So they paid him a fortune. Why? Just because of privatize, that means we contract everything out. We have to make it worth their while. So we'll give them these huge contracts. It's hugely wasteful. And 1997, it immediately stopped. Because Labour took one look at it and thought, no. So then he was looking for other work, which he found because he's quite skilled, my dad, really. It was a bit of a waste just driving a pissing truck up and down Europe.
So Jay's asking how we deal with electric cars. So at the moment, if you're on the Octopus Energy scheme, you can charge your electric car at night when no one else is using power for about £3 to get it up to 80%. So basically what you would normally pay maybe 40 quid in petrol or diesel for, you're getting for the amount of energy, you get it for about £3. So a scheme like that to make sure that the grid is balanced out, because obviously as more people get electric cars, it's going to be a lot more difficult. You know, like the cliche about people watching the World Cup final, and when it's the half-time whistle, everyone puts their kettles on all at the same time, massive surge of power. That's the kind of thing you don't want. They don't want people charging their electric cars during the daytime. They'd rather do it in the middle of the night, which is a more sensible time to do it, really, anyway. However, obviously, there's a lot of infrastructure that's got to go down in order to make this work for people, especially people living in council, living in. I was going to say flats, but actually, flats usually got car parks, so you could probably set up charge stations there pretty easy. It's people who live in terrace streets. That's going to be difficult, because I'm guessing what they're going to do eventually is have a thing in the ground that you have a key for. You turn the key and it rises out the ground just a little bit, and you plug into that. I'm guessing that's how they'll do it. But I'm not an engineer, and I don't know how that will work with rain and other stuff. So, but yeah, they are going to have to look into that. They're also going to have to look at the strength of the grid, because we're going to have a lot more.
To basically double it.
We're going to have a lot more load on the grid than ever before. Throughout the day and night now. But yeah, it's just, but like there were things that the Tories could have done over the last 13 years that they chose not to do.
Yeah.
Like making it so every new build has to have solar panels on the roof. That would have helped. Or, and not banning onshore wind farms. That would have been good.
But they see it as their job to do nothing. It's like it's all about the free market. They're on the side of those who are already winning from being able to do what they like. They're already at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
It's all about kicking down the ladders to the tree.
Yeah. It's painful. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say there was another little top troll from. It wasn't an intended troll. This wouldn't be the mainstream media. But I was looking at a little Twitter exchange last night when I was being an insomniac again, and some useful idiot. You know these people on Twitter who will parrot the Tory lines. And Annalisa Dodds was criticising Rishi Sunak for again just habitually using private transport flights and stuff like that when it's not needed. There are times when you do need it. Like I would say, don't make the Jimmy Carter mistake. Jimmy Carter was probably the finest leader of any advanced economy in the West in terms of his human decency. But he made a mistake because he wanted to be a proper president of the people. He didn't allow his like cabinet, his secretaries of state, to be chauffeured around. But the problem is then they lose an awful lot of productivity, because when you are being chauffeured around, okay, it's nice, but you are working in the back of the car and stuff like that. So it was sort of felt that they lost a lot of productivity, and then that's why he lost out to Reagan, which did nobody any good. No. But you need to think about it. There are times when Rishi Sunak, you'd go, okay, sure, the private flight, you've got to get somewhere for a meeting with someone, and then you've got to get back for a key vote in Parliament or something. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But he's just doing it habitually. There was a contract that he has ordered to be renewed for £40 million for his private helicopter, for example. So Annalisa Dodds was criticising his constant use of private aircraft. And then someone went, I'd like to see a Keir Starmer taking an EasyJet or Ryanair flight then. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. So let me just show you this. This is this week. Where is it? Bum, bum, bum. This is a Ryanair flight. And who is that? That is Keir Starmer this week.
Nice. There you go.
So it's a bit like, I mean, it's a, but again, and a lot of it will be performative. He doesn't have to take a Ryanair flight or anything like that. He'll be sort of doing that to egg it on a bit, but it's like, but you're still sending a message. If you're going to send a message, send the right one. If that was fine for him, and you can still work on a flight, like you sat down, it's not like you're driving.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not having like super confidential conversations, I can understand as Prime Minister, you might have to take a few more where you can't be around people who are having confidential conversations. But like, if you look at those private flights where he's surrounded by journalists, so why can't you just take business class?
Yeah.
If you're going to be surrounded by people you dare have a confidential conversation with anyway, because you're surrounded by journalists, you don't need the private plane for that, do you?
Yeah.
You just get like a normal service. But images like this. So that'll be so when so it allows Labour to attack this excess from the Tories, and they can't say we'd like to see you take these flights because like I've taken these. There you go. Here's me on Ryanair. Although some wag did point out that if you're basically in the first 2 rows, that's basically business class as far as Ryanair are concerned. But still,
Yeah. Okay, just to go back to the super chat, thank you very much, One Angry Pagan, for the £10. It's been very generous today, thank you. My dad's been working at Exeter St David's ticket office all of his life so far. Talking to him the other day, he told me it's worse than ever, doesn't know if he'll keep his job. That was one of the Tories' wizard wheezers this year, wasn't it? They're going to shut down the ticket offices, because why would we need them?
And then they had that massive consultation, didn't they, where virtually everyone who responded saying this is a terrible idea.
Can't you just use your private helicopter, darling? I hate them. And Dick and Sonia, that's a €10 super chat. Thank you very much. Or Dick and Sonia, maybe. I know you like euros. 5 each for you guys. Happy Christmas. Happy Christmas to you, my friend. I was going to just say about Lee Cruz picked up on. Are we up to number 10 yet?
Yeah, so number 10 is actually, ironically, that one.
Is it the Network North thing? Go on, take it away, Phil.
Where
have you got it? Have you got the image?
I could find it somewhere. Sorry,
I'm laughing.
So the Tories boasted about spending a lot of money. What was it? $250 million or something stupid?
$250 million
on filling potholes in London, and it had the Network North tag on it.
I saw it. I thought it was a piss take. I honestly couldn't believe it was real.
I posted it in a WhatsApp thing. I've just got part of it there. I posted it in a WhatsApp group that we're both in, and someone actually did say, "Is this real?" Because what I posted was an image of it rather than the original Department for Transport link, and it's like, it's actually on their department, and they pulled it
almost a quarter
because someone pointed out to them that this is pissing ridiculous. But at the same time, like if you look at in fact, I'm gonna find this because, and this was noted at the Tory Party conference when they produced this image, and this is still on their government. In fact, I'm actually going to go to the government website because it's even funnier when you look at it there.
This is so incompetent. I mean, like, how even the person putting that graphic together must have dragged the Network North logo onto that image.
Well, yeah, but they know that. But if I put this, so this, let me get rid of that. Where's that pissing image gone? No, that's me.
That's you.
There you go. Right. So this is the government website, Network North, right? Go Network North. And you look down here. If I click on that image, this is Network North. This is all the Network North projects. That's a hell of a lot in the south. Network North. Lots of things in the south. And also remember, we had this after the conference, most of these projects don't exist, and some of them have already been completed for years.
Oh, yes. This was the whole thing about the tram link going all the way to Manchester Airport, which is done for years.
And there was a similar thing in Nottingham, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yeah, that Nottingham one.
There was an extension that had actually already been extended.
It's already been done. And some of them as well, because remember, it was like when they were putting out, well, these projects don't exist. Oh, yes, but it's the sort of things you could do. The sort of thing. They're it's like, but you put them on a map.
I had that with the Brexiteer, mate.
They've even got the nerve. Look down there. They've got the nerve to put Old Oak Common to London Euston, which we don't even know is going to happen. And it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, they regard the Midlands as the North, obviously.
They obviously regard North London as the North because they boasted about putting $250 million of Network North funding into. And the fact is, it's not just that it's in London; it's for potholes, it's maintenance. That's not investment.
Yeah,
it doesn't invest. It's no investment to it. It's maintenance, road maintenance. So they've deleted the tweet now. Department for Transport. Someone pointed it out to them. It's no longer there. Someone pointed it out to them and went, "Yeah, we're getting ridiculed about this. Can you see why?"
North of the channel, Network North London in the chat here, Network North Kent. I remember having it out with Brexiteer back in the day, and when I pointed out that the £350 million for the NHS was bullshit, they said that was just a suggestion. It was just like, let's spend the money on the NHS instead. It wasn't, we're going to spend. It was just an idea. It was just a suggestion of one of many things that we could do with the extra money that we were going to get once Brexit cost us about £2 trillion to actually carry out. All the extra money we'll not have. How's the economy doing, Phil? Not so good. Old Oak Common is north of the River Thames geographically. That's a good point made by Katrina there. And Santa needs to give the Tories a compass for Christmas. When they talk about the North-South divide, I kind of get a bit annoyed because it misses out the Midlands. We've got to have the Midlands there so we can differentiate the North, which is definitely the North, from the Midlands, from the South. Yeah. It's kind of like a buffer zone. Like Afghanistan.
where some can pronounce grass and some 1800s.
Can't. A buffer zone between the Russian Empire in the north and the British Empire in the south of Asia. Thank you very much to One Angry Pagan. To me, London is north, says One Angry Pagan. Because you're down in you're down in the southeast. No, the southwest. Sorry, southwest. That end. But I mean, yeah, most of the damn country is north of Brighton, says Captain Bart Roberts. Yeah, true. And Nick says similar logic to Australia being part of Eurovision. Australia. Well, did you know?
I mean, that is only a competition, at least. At least that's just a competition. I mean, that's fine. No one gives a.
Is it all right that we're a member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
I mean, it's not doing us any good.
And that it's worth.
I mean, it was worth nothing. The government's economic assessment said it's worth nothing, and now they've revised it down to even more nothing. It was like nothing to if you rounded it off to like 0.5%, and now it's nothing if you round it down to 0.1%. It's just worth nothing.
But the thing is, the way the newspapers reported it, what they did was they got the GDP of every country in the agreement, put it all together, and said it's a £27 trillion deal. And it's like, no, it's not. What the hell? What are we going to go over there, take all of their money and all of their wealth and all of their property and just... Oh God, these people walk amongst us. Well, the newspapers know what they're doing, but there's the people who fall for it. Tim, thank you very much for the $330 NT. What's NT? Oh my God.
Well, you're the one who's traveled the world.
Nigerian. No, they use. Oh, it might be. I think that might be Nigerian tenge or whatever they use in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Tim, for that. Merry Christmas, Graham and Phil. Keep up the great work and engaging content. Thanks for all you and everyone at Labour Social do. Oh, thank you very much, Tim. And if you'd like to let us know what currency that is, I'd be quite... I think is it a Nigerian tenge? Have I just made up a currency? I'm having a look on my table here because I've got different currency from around the world on my table. Got the Bank of Guyana over there. Tanzania. No, can't see it. Anyway, thank you very much. Taiwan. Oh, it's Taiwan dollars. New Taiwan dollars. Thank you very much, Tim Sheen, for that. It's worth nothing, but it does open the British market to new, exciting, unchecked products, says Yoni, talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So we're seeing more.
The thing is, we're not even in it yet. I mean, it's one of these things. We'll probably be in it for like a day, and then Labour will come in and go, because they want to like it causes problems with standardising with the EU, and they want to standardise with the EU.
Yeah.
So it's another performative thing.
Now we're seeing products with "not for EU" stamped on them.
Yeah, but I mean that's it's quite hilarious, and it's the government's fault for not explaining what they are. It doesn't mean they're lower standard.
Yeah.
It's part of the Windsor framework. So what it is hilarious to poke Brexiteers about it. But what it actually is, it's so that you can send it to Northern Ireland without there's like the red and the green lane. The red lane is like full import checks, and the green lane is like can basically get waved through. But it has to be you have to make it clear that it's only for sale in Northern Ireland. So that's what that sticker's about. But obviously you can't create packaging specifically for the Northern Ireland market because it's like you'd need an extra production line. That's expensive. So you're also seeing it in Britain as well because it's like the same stuff.
Yeah.
It just means that you cannot sell it in the EU. It doesn't mean it's lower standard. It just means that it's not going to be getting any checks when it goes to Northern Ireland.
But it's so close to not for you.
Yeah.
Not for you, darling. Not for EU.
But you can
Cash.
see how people would think that this is lower standard Brexit fare. So it doesn't do the Tories any good, the fact that they haven't bothered to explain to the public what it means.
Yeah, true. Christine Cash, thanks to the cash. $10 US. And also Captain Bart Roberts, thanks to the £10. Tenner, a drink for you both. Thanks for keeping me cheerful through the entire shit show over the past 18 months. You're very welcome, Captain Bart Robertson. Thanks for sticking with us all this time. What's your Christmas tipple of choice, Phil?
Usually port.
Oh, I love.
Or sometimes a nice blonde Belgian beer. Quite like.
Yeah, I'm quite partial to that myself. But yeah, definitely port this time of year. Little port glass, and yeah, and also there's a make of port called Graham's Port, which is always good.
Yes, it's quite nice.
It wasn't until I'm probably about 40 years old that I discovered that port and sherry were the same thing, where sherry came from Spain and port came from Portugal. I didn't know that. I was today years old when I found out. But yeah, love a bit of port. How are you feeling about mulled wine? Do you bother with that, or?
I don't really know. I'm not actually a fan of most alcoholic drinks.
Oh, I'm quite partial to mulled wine. I had mulled cider last Christmas.
Oh, that sounds better.
One of those
Spiced cider I could get into, but I've not had that
hot,
before.
Spicy cider. It was nice. It was warmed the cockles of my heart. How do you feel about eggnog?
No,
just no. Just eggnog and Brussels sprouts.
My partner's got some like Advocaat and stuff like that to make snowballs. It's like I shall not be partaking.
Bless you. All right, mate. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up now because it's a few minutes past 2:00. I'll be back at 9:00 tonight for the Labour Social. We're going to try and run a quiz. We tried to do it last week, but our friend Wayne fell asleep. Did you hear about that, Phil?
Yeah. I saw the commotion on WhatsApp.
I was texting him, I was calling him during the show. I had my phone in my hand going like, where the hell are you? Because he had all this game set up for us to play this board game, and then he fell asleep. Wayne. Anyway, so hopefully Wayne will be joining us tonight. Don't know. I'm not going to guarantee it, but we'll be trying to play some Christmas games with you guys. So please join us for that at 9:00 on this channel. And is that for you till Christmas, Phil? Are you off the hook now?
I think so.
Are you going to be doing stuff on your channel?
Yeah. But
okay,
there will be a reduced schedule from Christmas Eve.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, we'll look out for that on @adifferentbias, all one word. And also, Anchor at Wells, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Pass the port to the left. See what you've done there.
I don't pass it anyway. It's all mine.
Port used to be larboard. I couldn't think of something more stupid. So it was starboard and larboard on a ship in a storm, shouting at someone, "Which way? Larboard? What was that? Starboard? No, it was larboard." So they changed the port.
Right. I would still say it is good to have a 2-syllable word when you need to be clear about an instruction. 2-syllable words are better. That's why I always think for dogs you should have 2-syllable names for them.
Oh, really?
But I think so because I think it's easier to understand. 1-syllable where it's just a noise, isn't it? I would, it's like the first syllable is alerting you, and then the second syllable confirms what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, but you don't want it to be almost the same word as.
No, you don't. I agree with that. But they shouldn't have gone to port. They should have said something like wibble or something.
Wibble.
Bosun, wibble.
There's a massive iceberg. Quick, wibble. Hard wibble. Anyway, I haven't even started drinking yet. It's going to be a long weekend. So honestly, Monday is the best day to have Christmas Day on because you get to have the whole weekend build up, and then you just get to be hungover on Christmas Day while you're making your gravy. Right. So if we don't see you before, have a fantastic Christmas, and Phil, obviously, have an awesome Christmas, mate. All the best, and we'll speak on the other side, I think.
Who's just said mixed port with a drop of brandy? Do you know what port is? It's already got brandy in it.
Anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much for the chat and the super chat's really generous today. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And like I say, we'll be back at 9:00. Well, I'll be back at 9:00. Phil's got better things to do. He's out partying. So I'll be back at 9:00 for the Labour Social, the last one before Christmas. So join us for that. And until then, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.